here from transformationstm.com, and today I would love your feedback, please. Let me start my stopwatch so I can keep an eye on the time on both sections. So this is a bit of a mammoth task. I'm going to attempt to do an overview of the whole 8 or 9 hour Fearless Public Speaking program in about, I'd love to do it in 30 minutes. I suspect it's going to take a little bit longer, particularly if I have people coming onto the stream live and asking questions. But here we go. Also, it will be a little bit weird because when I run my proper webinars, what happens is I can actually jump from slides to slides. I can go from slide number 1 to slide number 20 to slide number 15 to slide number 7. The way I'm doing it today in this particular platform, which I don't use, of course, for webinar trainings, the slides are in a deck. I can't see what's coming next. So it may not be as smooth as it normally is for my workshops, but bear with me because I've never used this functionality before. I normally just have all the individual slides at the bottom, but because there are about 100 of them that I really want to whiz through just to give you a sense of what's coming and have you say, I love that topic, not so much, that's not really important, it's good but not important, doesn't need to be in the main day. Let me put this into context. The reason I'm doing this is because this coming weekend, I'm running the one-day online Fearless Public Speaking Workshop Intensive. It is based on 4 half-day workshops that I ran, plus 2 bonus modules. So in total, we're talking about nearly 20 hours worth of content. That's too much. There were 422 presentation slides. So what I want to do is I've got to get that 20 hours worth of content down to about 8 hours. Now, I know what I think is important and what I think is relevant to public speaking. However, people will be in a different place to me. So what I want to do is get some feedback. If you were, let's say, picking your top 3, it might be your top 5 or even your top 10 topics. As I'm going through these topics, particularly if you're watching this as a replay and you've got the benefit of pressing pause when you want to have a bit of a breather rather than having to go at the pace I'm going to go at today, I would love you just to jot down, in terms of public speaking, presenting, these 3, these 5, or even these 10, if you're feeling really keen, are really important to me, and I would absolutely want them to be in the workshop. And then there might be a couple you go, I like the idea, but it's not essential. So with that said and explained, let me get started. So I'm gonna have to keep looking down here because that's where the button is. So this is there's the Fearless Public Speaking program. Now, for those of you who are part of the program and you're joining me for the one day, because even though I'm leaving out some stuff, you're not missing out because all of those half-day workshops plus the bonus sessions are inside of the portal. So you're going to have all of that at your fingertips. The overarching purpose of the workshop is about the how-to and the mechanics of presenting, public speaking. So how to design your workshops, how to deliver your workshops, dealing with nerves and anxiety, connecting with your audience, all of that sort of stuff. So that's what we're covering in the overall workshop, and that's really what we're looking to do. The starting point for me in terms of this whole topic was, how do you go from being terrified of public speaking, which I was right up until the age of 32, to absolutely loving it? So the little pink dot on stage is me. So we're talking about those things. I'm also going to introduce you to some of my clients, just so you get a sense of, well, what can you expect from doing this kind of work? So this is the wonderful Erica Brodnock, who was petrified of public speaking when we worked together, but been invited to do a TED talk, for example. She's now a global award-winning speaker and has just been awarded, I think it's either the MBE or the OBE in the honors list. I'm not quite sure which one it was. I think it was the MBE, but this is something she does so naturally. She's amazing. Some of you might know the wonderful Natasha Waldron, for example, because for some of you, you are the face of your business. So you are representing, maybe talking to the press, talking to the media, or in Natasha's case, speaking at these. So this is her event in Singapore, I believe, where she's on stage to thousands of other entrepreneurs. So, you know, you can go from, I really don't want to do this, to I'm absolutely loving it. Many of you who are watching this, if you're on my page rather than watching it on YouTube, you probably will know Sita Jones. So Sita has been with me on this journey of running these webinars, and she has been absolutely fantastic and amazing. And so we're talking about here in Sita's case, going from reluctant to being on camera, going live, to actually just hitting that key. And if you follow Sita, you will know, and you follow her health blog, you'll know that she's doing something she's doing a lot more regularly, and doing it live without doing the pre-records. So there are lots of ways that you might be coming at this. Some of you, it may be in the context of your work. So you may not be an entrepreneur, you may not have your own business, but one of the first clients I did a breakthrough session with, gosh, that would have been a good 18, 19 years ago. His job was to go and present to the stock exchange in London. New York Stock Exchange will be the nearest comparison for those of you in the United States. Was absolutely terrified, hated doing it, and had that rabbit in the headlights scenario when he was actually at work doing the practice run with staff, and went into a place and a space within 8 hours, because it was just a one-day breakthrough session, to absolutely loving it and feeling at home on stage. This was one of my clients. We're talking about a slightly different program, but there were elements that I'm going to be doing on at the one-day Fearless Public Speaking workshop that we did on that program. And her quote was, "It does what it says on the tin. My life is transformed." So I really do want to take you from a place where you may be fearful of public speaking to where you absolutely love it. And that was a quote from Claudette Byfield. And when she got in touch, she'd watched a video on my testimonials page on my website and was watching it saying, oh gosh, I would love to be in that situation one day where I'm the person sharing my results and sharing the transformation. And sure enough, a couple of months later, she was exactly the same. She was watching Amana's video, and now I have her video, and somebody else will be watching and will be inspired by her. So a lot can change in a very short amount of time. And that's what she was saying. I'd written about her in my e-newsletter, and she said she read it and she was just cherishing and smiling from ear to ear and feeling really excited for the people who would be coming after her and going through the journey, because they just don't yet realize what's going to be happening and what will be unfolding. This is again a really lovely quote from Sita, who is actually here. Hi Sita, thank you so much for joining me. And Sita was saying wow and wow in terms of just being able to attend the webinar, take the things that she'd been learning and put them into practice immediately, like within minutes, because I was just still doing the back office stuff, and Sita had already posted a video and had started writing her thoughts from just some of the ideas I'd shared on one of the bonus webinars. So it really is pretty amazing in terms of if you want to hit the ground running. So in terms of, one of the things that people often say is, what can you expect, particularly if it's online and you may not be able to attend live? So this is from one of my clients who, when I first ran the Fearless Public Speaking workshop as a one-day video webinar workshop, that then went on to what you call Evergreen. So I happened to just be on holiday one year. That was January 2020, just before the world went a little bit crazy. And so I'm by the pool. I get a message from Rachel CK. Some of you may know her. She does the doTERRA oils and also runs groups for women and entrepreneurs. And I got an email from her saying, wow, I'm taking your program. I'm with you at the moment. I spent the day with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, is she here around the pool? And then I realized she'd taken the Fearless Public Speaking program, and because she had a talk coming up a couple of weeks later, and she did amazingly. So I might read you some of these quotes later, but let's get into it. So we take you on a journey. We have a roadmap for everything that we want to cover on the Fearless Public Speaking program. So I'm going to open with that most likely, just to give you some placeholders. There are lots of different components that we cover in the workshop. There's going to be some theory. There'll be things that I get you to think about. There'll be ideas and strategies, or what I call those aha moments, those light bulb moments. There will be, of course, the magical components. There will be things to get your brain ticking over, and also some practical things for you to do so that you bring the whole thing together. Because theory is wonderful, don't get me wrong, but in a topic like this, practice is where it's at. And one of the things I always say, actually, let me just, I'm going to do that. Why don't I do that? That's much better. So actually, let me, 1 second, just because it was too small for you to read. So, and that's the thing, you can't really jump with, so I just want you to be able to see, because people often say, well, what if I can't make it live? I might be watching the replay. Now, when Rachel did this particular training, and this is the new and updated version, I wasn't there. There was no interaction with me. We had done a coaching session a couple of months beforehand, but I wasn't there when she took the workshop. But this is what she said. It'll be a bit bigger now, so we can all read it. She says to the for those of you who are asking me about my big talk in January and shared my joy that I was so happy with how it had gone, Marilyn Devnish is the awesome lady that enabled me to breathe, think and talk all at the same time. And now you can do it too, exclamation mark. Whether you get nervous in social settings, on social media, speaking one-to-one or in small groups or on big stages, these techniques work. I'm tapping into what I learned almost every day now. What's holding you back from sharing your passions and knowledge? And that's Rachel CK, educator, natural life coach, awesome mama and oil lover in terms of the doTERRA oils. Right, so I'm just going to quickly whiz back. It's a little bit slow as well, a bit clunky. Does the job, I suppose. It does what I want it to do. Anyway, so one of the things that now in all of my workshops, there'll be times where I'm running corporate workshops and I'll still sneak this slide in. This is one from Hawaiian Huna, and it says, think not that all wisdom is in your school. I am sharing things with you that I have used over the last, it'll be 23 years. I started doing this in October 2000. So depending on when you're watching this video, that I've been using since October 2000, that I've been using with my clients for the last 20 plus years. So well over 2 decades. And I'm using things that I use with my clients in the coaching sessions that I teach on corporate workshops. These are the things that I've found to work most effectively. That doesn't mean it's a be all and end all, and it's not going to encompass everything. That's partly why we're here today. So I'm going to share with the things that I think are amazing, that really work, and there'll be other ways, of course, that you can do things. So one of the things I started with on the first workshop, because it was in 4 parts for the main chunks, we talked about some of the common reasons for signing up. Some that might be you're scared of Facebook, Zoom, live streaming, contributing at meetings, whatever it might be. It may be you have a message that you want to share, but you've been procrastinating, or you've realized that you can try and practice, and it's still not making perfect, and you haven't got that extra oomph to go for it. So there'll be a myriad of things that are going on for you. So that's one of the things that we cover. Oh, and Sita says, your program helped me so much. I joined a Zoom conversation tonight and I spoke without being like a rabbit in the headlights. Really looking forward to Saturday. Sita, that is absolutely amazing. Well done. Or as Dr. Paul Sheely says, he says, applause all round. I like that. But Sita, that's absolutely amazing. That's brilliant. Well done. I love that. Absolutely love that. And that whole thing, it may be that you've got to speak to the media, for example, for your work, for your job, for your business, and you don't want to make a fool of yourself. Or, as Sita was talking about, one of the things that people commonly say is they feel like a rabbit in the headlights. So wonderful. That is brilliant, Sita. Sorry, I can see it just before you see the comment. You will see it any moment now. So Sita says, thank you. It feels amazing. Well done, you. Because one of the things you did, Sita, was got the information, put it into practice, and took what I call the Nike approach, and you just do it. So that is amazing. And for some of you, it may be that you simply want to be more eloquent, or you want to actually feel more relaxed and calm when you're presenting, rather than feel like you're just grabbing on and waiting for it all to be over. A lot of people actually talked about, because I did some surveys as I was going through, and before I designed the program, while I was designing the program, and while we're in the program in terms of the main workshops and modules that went before. And so these were some of the things that people most commonly said. So some said they want to be able to stay on track when they're presenting. Others have said they really just want to be able to be spontaneous, not like sort of robotic, and you can't get yourself off track. Many said they just want to be in a position where they don't just get through public speaking, they actually love it, and how to prepare, how to present when you're unscripted, how to be compelling, be more confident, either in person or online. So there are a myriad of kind of reasons and who this might be for. Now, one of the things that I also noticed over the years that I've been coaching on this subject, oftentimes it doesn't have anything to do with standing up on stage, or in the world we're in now, presenting online, or as Sita was saying, on Zoom, etc. For many people, it's about meetings and social gatherings, and what I call the coulda, shoulda, woulda, where people will come out of a meeting, go, oh, could have said this, I should have said that, or I wish I would have done the X, Y, Z. They have great ideas, but they don't speak up about them. And this was someone, again, slightly different context, but we did some work around her public speaking. She took the photo reading workshop because she knew she had a lot of knowledge, was not bringing it to the fore. And she said, after we'd done some coaching around it, she said, Marilyn, I don't know what you've done to me. I've moved so far from where I was 2 months ago when I did the course, and I got so much more than photo reading. Thank you. Because she went from being the little mouse in the corner, listening to everything, having brilliant ideas and never sharing them. She worked for an investment bank in the finance department. An investment bank in the city. I'm pointing because that's the direction I go when I go to the bank. But she worked for an investment bank in the finance division, but would never speak up and never share her ideas. So she realized she's then starting to get overlooked. And when she does speak up, doesn't really have that sense of gravitas. For other people, it may be that it is about your work and career. And you know that when you go for an interview, even if they don't ask you to do a presentation, an interview is a mini presentation. And for example, one of my clients had not interviewed for 10 years, same job, no progression. She also worked for the same investment bank, wanted to go for a much bigger position, a much bigger role. What are you going to be saying when you have not interviewed for 10 years? You've just been sitting still. She got the job. So we'll talk about some of those aspects of and absolutely, Sita saying your program brings out our confidence and it's magical. And it is about that. It's about unlocking people's potential. Some of you might be in business, you might be entrepreneurs. So it may be now we're looking at you have to share your ideas, talk about your products, talk about your services. You might actually be wanting to teach other people, or as I said earlier, simply be the face of your business. So it can be a multitude of things. One of the things we get into is how do you feel about going live? Because that's a big part of it. So in day one, we spend a fair bit of time going into the feelings. Now, it could be that you're required to teach live on stage. So little pink dot, that's me. That was at Kensington Olympia. Or it could be that you are going live online. Sometimes that can be one-to-one. Sometimes it can be one-to-many, and sometimes it can be over a period of days. For this was the TCCHE, the Conference for Consciousness and Human Evolution. So the reason I'm in all of the pictures, I was the MC, and this one, I think it ran for something like 10 days, 12 hours a day, going to, oh my gosh, it was something like 123 countries, and they had over 5,000 people on each of those sessions. And many of those people you may recognize if you're in the personal development world. They've got brains the sizes of planets. So it's a big deal to be keeping up with them and keeping 5,000 people around the world. We had translators as well. So I had to make sure I'm very clear on what I'm saying and still manage to get the point across, recognizing that people are listening in other languages. So whether it's in person, whether it's online, we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about the things that you worry about. What is it? Is it about speaking to large audiences? Is it about speaking to small audiences? Because both of which have their challenges. It might be, how do you actually keep the audience engaged? How do you connect with that many people? What if you forget what you're going to say? What if you go blank when you're on stage? What if it's the fact that all eyes are on you and you are the focus of attention? How can you make sure that you stay on track? Which is one of the reasons why people often don't like questions, because they know what they want to say and how they want to say it and the order they want to say it, and it's all there in it. And then so somebody comes with a question, that's a bit of a curveball. So we'll be talking about all of that, and also how do you prepare at short notice? We'll maybe say a bit more about that as well. And there's also the whole piece around imposter syndrome that came up a few times in the survey. And so one of the things we talk about is having people just recognize, where do they fit in that paradigm? Are you someone who feels nervous and anxious, for example? Is it that when you've got a speaking engagement in your calendar or in your diary is keeping you up at night and you're fretting about it, you're worrying about it? Is it that the thought of running Facebook lives and hitting and actually many people don't even get to the point of hitting the button to go live because they're too terrified about everything that comes before, and it's all too overwhelming. It could just be, there are massive benefits to being able to speak and present and communicate clearly, and you're leaving all of that on the table. So it can be a myriad of things. And sometimes, and I know this is one of the things where I started, it was like, well, who am I to? Why would anyone want to listen to me. And it wasn't just imposter syndrome. For me, it ran a lot deeper than that. And so this whole thing is about unlocking your potential. And as it says here on the screen from Sita, it's about bringing out that sense of inner confidence and calm. And when I say confident about being on stage, it's got nothing to do with ego and being an extrovert, because I am off the chart introvert. But it's about, because I don't know if you've had the experience, I'm sure many of you have, somebody has walked into the room or walked up onto the stage, not in a rah-rah kind of way. It's been a quiet presence, but they've held the room. And so really that's the thing that I'm talking about. So in terms of if you're interested in doing the program, the long URL is there, and that's for it is for the Fearless Public Speaking program. But if you scroll down, you can hit enroll in this program. It's a gray button, and it will take you down to the bottom, and there is an option just to do the one-day workshop. And you can point your phone, your device at the QR code, and it will take you to the point where there's a link there as well. But the easiest way, I would say, rather than all that faffing about, is just go to my main website, which is transformationstm.com. It's coming along the bottom of the ticker tape. So TRANCE, F for Freddie, so FORMATIONSTM. So transformationstm.com. And click the red What's New button. It's usually top right. And then what will happen is a panel will slide out, depending on which way, if we're reversed, the panel will slide out. And right at the top, if you're watching this in real time, I have added the link where you can book yourself on the webinar. And there's the bit where you can book in US dollars. And there's also a link if you wanted to do it in pounds. So in workshop number 1, so this is where this is the audience participation bit. This is a summary of what we did in workshop number 1, and I'm going to expand on just a few of these to give you the gist. But I would love, so we talked about how to go from terrified to loving public speaking. So we talked about the unconscious saboteurs, how to calm your nerves and anxiety. So we had a process for that. We had the 5-minute presentation mapping process to help you structure a presentation. How do you go from blank sheet of paper to mapping it out in 5 minutes? How to boost your memory and recall. So we looked at strategies for doing that, tips for creating audience connection, and some practical exercises. So my sense is I will probably still do all of that. And the reason it's workshop number 1, it's the foundation pieces. So I also was finding out about you, drilling down into what do you want to get from this program, because particularly if you're doing it live, that's where your questions will come from. I could talk about this subject for weeks. I could talk about this subject for 14 days. I know that because when I was an NLP trainer, we used to run, the practitioner was 7 days, master practitioner is 14 days, the presenting course was 3 days. I could talk about this for 14 days straight. So there's a lot of information. So the way you will get the most out of it is to have clarity about where you are, what's most important to you. So we kind of start with a bit about you and getting into that, talking about your levels of confidence and where are the areas where you're most comfortable, where are the areas where you're least comfortable, because we want to do the whole benchmarking piece. We have some fundamental questions. And these, if I were going to summarize all of them into one big, it's what's the difference that makes a difference. And that was a question when I was doing my NLP practitioner training. Tad James was one of the trainers, and that was one of the questions that was posed. And it was a bit of a mind twist. I was like, what's the difference that makes a difference? But when you know what that is, whoosh, everything else starts to fall into place. So we do the blank sheet of paper exercise, and it really is a blank sheet of paper. You're going to have 5 minutes to map out the foundation of your presentation. So we call it the 5-minute challenge. I know at that point people go, 5 minutes? And I, for the last couple of years, I've been coaching at the University of Oxford, coaching their fellows. And they also invited me to Oxford to deliver a presentation skills masterclass. So this is Keyboard Chapel that I'm teaching in. I'm wearing the same top. There we go, little dot at the front. And these are fellows, some of them different ages, but I would say ages, let's just say 19 to 25, that sort of age group. So not massive amounts of work experiences yet. I set them the 5-minute challenge. We had paper, we had pens, Everybody had a piece of paper. Everybody was given a pen. I set my stopwatch. I stopped it at 5 minutes, and then I invited the fellows to come to the front, stand on the stage, deliver their presentation. Every single person that came up could do it, and those in the audience had completed it. So you can totally do it in 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. We also talk about memory strategies, and I share with you some of my favorite strategies. I also share with you, it's a strategy that dates back about 2,500 years when I was researching the origins of it. There are also some things that we take from the photo reading, because the current memory world champion is a photo reader. So she'd written a really lovely email to Dr. Paul Sheely thanking him for the skill. So I'm going to share with you some of those aspects as well. We also talk about how to harness your energy. The reason I've included that is because if your energy is off, so are you. If you are off balance, your ability to deliver a good, clear, concise, confident, solid presentation is also off. So we talk about, and as I'm talking to you all, I'm kind of going to myself, yeah, we're going to do that, and so I'm almost kind of editing, but I think we're definitely going to do the energy piece. We also, because as I said, theory is cool, we need to do some stuff. So I'm asking you, what are the biggest challenges? What are you least comfortable doing? What are the things that you possibly fear about presentations? What is it you want to improve on? No point stirring all of that up if we don't do something to resolve it. So what we're going to be doing this, it's a firm favorite. Actually, I've had an idea. I should have done that before, actually. If I can do this quickly, if it doesn't get itself into a tiz, let me just... and that's one of the things I'll talk about on the workshop, actually. Yay, right, cool, let's just do that as well. So it's one of the things I will talk about on the workshop, but I digress for now. So HUNA is an absolute firm favorite. So we're going to do a HUNA energy clearing session. So depending on what people want to work on, I'll choose the symbols that we use. That one happens to be one of my favorites. Thunder comes down and strikes the earth and makes the earth shake. It's really brilliant for breaking up energy. HUNA is one of those things that works with groups, and it works through space and time. So I have lots of MP3 audio recordings that people are listening to them years later and still benefiting from them as though they were there live. So with regards to this, even if you're watching the replay recording, you're thinking, well, there's loads of us, how can we all benefit? Trust me when I tell you, we can. You can come back and read some of these later, but I'll just read one of them for you. Let's just see. So someone says, I attended the 4-day TCCHE event a couple of weeks ago, and although I found the speakers fascinating, your HUNA work had the most profound effect on me. There's over 500 people in the audience. All of those people were coming up and going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. They all had something different to say. They all had something happen which was in alignment with where they were in their life at the moment, or some ailment they had. They had no idea what I was doing because it was a really impromptu session. I only did 5 minutes. Everyone had a profound experience in a different way that was right for them. And that's one of the things I love about HUNA. So we will do a HUNA session if you're there. Now, if you have booked, but you can't make it live, you can email me with what you want me to focus on. So I'm going to have you in mind when I'm doing the clearing. And rest assured that even if you're listening to the recording, you're not there live, you'll still get massive benefits. This is one of my lovely clients out in Australia, Pippa Neve, pippaneve.com. If you want to look her up, she does the wonderful, gorgeous meditations. And this was a few years ago. I was testing out some ideas. Pippa couldn't make it live because of the time zone difference. I'm in the UK. Australia is way they're ahead of us. So she listened to the replay recording, and I didn't realize until a few years afterwards that what Pippa was saying in terms of her third eye and the throat chakra and the feeling uncomfortable and the triangle of fire and the pain being drawn out of her chest, it was in perfect alignment with the symbols I was using. It was an audio recording. I was on the telephone back in those days, so she couldn't even see what I was doing, would not have known what the symbols were. And some of you may know Lac Loy. He says, and this is what people say a lot, you're not going to believe this, but he says, you're not going to believe this. You have an amazing ability. It's having miraculous effect. And he was blocked, had been out of work for 9 months. So he did a HUNA session over the phone. So whatever the challenge or blockage is for you, bring that to the table. We're also going to do the access consciousness. So that's Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here in the photo, they're the co-creators of Access Consciousness. So we're going to do the Access Consciousness. We're going to use the clearing statement. Again, people have used it in very different ways. All of these were done online or by telephone, and the results were always pretty miraculous. I make no financial claims. I cannot say what's going to happen. It's a different experience for everyone. I just say come with an open mind. And if you've never experienced HUNA before, people say it's like putting stuff in a blend, all your limiting beliefs, judgments, limitations, all those blockages into a blender, whoosh, and just whizzing it about and taking you from the stuck state where everything then starts to open up. So we'll do a HUNA and Access Consciousness session. There is the ripple effect. Notice what you notice, because there are times the same changes are quite profound, and a lot of the time it's very subtle. So you'll just find yourself one day doing something that used to maybe terrify you, and it might not be until after you've done it you go, oh wow, I didn't even think about it this time. So I just say notice what you notice. That's that fabulous ripple effect. We're also going to start looking at the ideas that you have and helping you generate ideas that will be the best way to present whatever it is you're doing. Yes, there are some standard things that you can do, and it's also a very personal thing as well. So we're going to look at how we personalize that. There are also options if you wanted to do a video recording or an audio recording, so you can see and hear yourself, or you want me to have a look and give you some feedback. I've got a portal where you can do that as well. So those are the main things that we did in workshop number 1. In workshop number 2, we looked at harnessing your physical and mental energy, dealing with open forums, live questions, a system that can help you focus and remember on what you want to say, how to handle a live audience, physiology and body language, stage presence, how to create a more compelling performance, and how to be more spontaneous on stage. So those are some of the things we were looking at there. So of course we did a recap. The big why. We use the why in a number of different ways. The context in which we start talking about it, one of the ways we look at it is, what is the consequence? Why would you want to learn this skill? Why would you want to do this in the first place? Why not just go off and read a book or something, or go for a walk? And so we're looking at the consequence of lack of engagement. It can affect, of course, your professional life, your working life. It can also affect your social life. If you're in the context of work, you can be passed over for promotion. If you're not employed, but you work for yourself, but you're not making that impact, you can just, people can just pass you by, not even realize you're there, or you're not top of mind when they're thinking about things. People often turn down opportunities. There was someone who filled out the survey. I don't know if they actually did the program, because I had a general survey as well. But one of the things they'd said, they were invited back by the university, come back as alumni to talk to the next generation. They loved the idea, but they turned it down because they didn't want to do the public speaking. People can feel left out and isolated, holding yourself back in terms of the opportunities. And oftentimes something that's very common is the whole self-sabotage thing. And it goes beyond public speaking. So I then start talking about, well, think about, particularly if you're not someone who's teaching, training, coaching, delivering meetings, just start thinking about all of the different ways that the skill of speaking shows up for you. And we've talked about some of those already. So getting people just to think about utilization. And then what we really start doing, what we did on the second workshop, is we'd laid the foundation, and now we start filling it in, and almost like building the house, well, that's the analogy I was kind of using. So we really start building on that blank sheet of paper exercise and start putting all the structures up. So now, and what my intention with this one is, by the end of the day, you've got the basis of part of a good presentation done, and then it will be a case of just putting the flourishes and the nuances around it. So that's really kind of what I'm thinking about with regards to this. So on this one I shared, and actually maybe one of the things I can do, because this one I shared 8 strategies for creating audience connection. So possibly where I've been sharing strategies, rather than 8, we might do 3 or 4. That's a possibility. But in the kind of full version, which is, as I said, it's available in the portal if you kind of missed the replay, we did 8 strategies. I looked at 6 key components of body language, for example, because that's a really important part, because it's not just what's coming out of your mouth, it's also what's happening with your physiology and all of the things that happened around that. We did a section around mindset, state management in terms of your thoughts, your feelings, physiology, your focus. So who's that? It's Greg Braden and Nassim Harriman. Seriously, what those two don't know about spirituality, cosmology, geology, science, you could write it on a postage stamp. And my job is to interview them, keep it engaging, all the rest of it. And if you let things like that freak you out, number one, you'll just say no to the opportunity, or number two, you'll just be all over the place and let that overwhelm you. So state management is really important. So we'll probably leave that one in. Workshop number 3. Your timeline wish, we putting a goal in your future timeline, validating your ideas, presentation, consolidation and completion, presentation practice. Actually, bonus session, harnessing the power of AI. Maybe that's an obvious one where we can take that out. Visual recap. Oh yeah, that was a fast finish, and we had Q&A as well. So let's see, what did we flesh out there? So if you are joining us, start thinking about what's the goal you would like to put in your future timeline. So for example, just to give you a sense of why I do this particular exercise, the folder is there behind me on the shelf. When I first started when I was doing the NLP training back in the year 2000, one of my big goal with public speaking was to be able to speak to small groups of people and look them in the eye, and be able to speak with some sort of knowledge and confidence. That was my big goal. Now, at the time, it seemed major because I was terrified of public speaking. Now I'm like, really? But we got to start somewhere. So it's going to be putting a goal in your future timeline, something you really would like to achieve. And the day will come where you look back on it, like I look back on mine and went, really? But at the time, it's big. So that kind of sets the energetic process. I went through 6 strategies for validating your ideas, because there'll be times where if you're at work, somebody might give you a presentation to deliver. Fine. You don't need to validate the ideas. You just stand up and do whatever you're told. When you are creating the presentation, you've got to be sure it's something that your demographic and audience wants. We've got 6 strategies for validating that. The opening and closing of a presentation is really important, so we look at that. This is the section I probably would leave out, actually, because it's already there anyway in the other one, is the AI. So we looked at AI, I looked at some of the AI art. I also showed you some of the outtakes. They're quite horrific. We talked about AI pitfalls and the ethics of AI, and ways to use it. And I also showed you a piece of software that you can create a whole presentation, presentation slides, in about 3 minutes. However, the reason it came later is because we do everything manually first. That's just the cherry on the cake. We also did some process. So we did the fire release process. That was a HUNA process. We also did a guided meditation piece. I'll have a think. Maybe one of the ways I can get around it in terms of time is actually, because I've recorded them as standalone, part of them as standalone as well. So possibly that's what I could do. And we did the state management. We did a whole piece around anchoring as well. For those of you who studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, you'll know what anchoring is. But one of the reasons I put that in, I remember I was at, I can actually see it now. You walk into Kensington Olympia. I was on the, if you walk into the door, I was on the right hand, but as I see it in my mind now, I'm on the left. And I was doing a big talk for a global organization, feeling okay, until the runner said to me, looked at the watch and said, oh, we better get you mic'd up soon. And my heart just went ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. I was like, oh my God. And I realized I was freaking out at the thought of being mic'd up. So I set a different anchor for that, and that changed everything. So I can talk about it. We don't have to do the whole exercise, but I can explain it. This one we could probably leave it out as well. But I talked about how do you go from 0 in terms of blank sheet of paper to having a whole workshop and launch an event in just 8 hours, because that's what happened when I created the Magic and Gratitude program. I used a similar approach when I created the Limitless Neuro Success program. Both of those were 28-day e-coaching programs. And with the Magic, I got up at around 3 o'clock in the morning. And by 11 a.m., it was like, done. I've done the Eventbrite page. I've mapped it all out. And I had the first people signed up by about 2 o'clock that afternoon. One of the questions people say, well, is it any good after 8 hours? So that's feedback from somebody a couple of people who took the program when I first launched it in February 2013. So, and somebody was saying, they've just got no idea how much it's meant to them. It feels good to be part of the group. They're warm, and these people are still friends to this day, all these years later. So it has been wonderful. Somebody else saying life-changing, truly magical your course was. Keep doing your magical work. The course itself was created in 8 hours. It took me longer, of course, to do all the 28-day, typing the emails, getting the pictures, getting the images, but I take you through the 8 stages of that. That's not essential, actually, to fearless public speaking. So in my mind, as I'm talking to you guys about it, and girls, they, them, I'm thinking that's one that could possibly go. And then the final workshop number 4, we did the 10-point checklist. We did the presentation, practice and debrief, power of storytelling. Storytelling is a nice to have, maybe not essential. Importance of case studies and testimonial, additional messages, and how to add the wow factor. We did a wash up and I shared some miscellaneous tips and ideas, and we did the final Q&A. So, oh yeah, so the Oprah ugly cry, and that related to something that we'd started. So we talk about the impact of that. That's a fun one. How to flesh out your presentation, working with all of the quadrants. Yeah, anything else that was coming up in terms of negative emotions, limiting beliefs, because if you have all of those little weird things going on and you don't do something to address them, you can have all of the information, but your ability to do something with that information and put it into practice almost gets like strangled, like the image you can see there. So what we want to do is we want to look at the root cause and start just unraveling some of that to create enough space for you to be able to step out and take those first steps. Now, this isn't a breakthrough session. A breakthrough session is full on looking at anger, sadness, fear, guilt, anxiety, limiting beliefs, not good enough, not worthy enough, not capable, all that stuff. Now we're going to touch on some of that with the HUNA and Access Consciousness, but of course in the context of this, that's not the main focus, but we do need to do something to at least begin to unravel that. Otherwise, people find then just not putting the information into practice. So we did a bit more about that. We did the 10-point checklist in terms of all the things you can do, kind of summarizing it. Had some suggestions for you, some of my favorite things to do when you're doing open forums and handling live questions. Also a couple of my magic phrases. I'm not kidding you. These phrases have been working a treat for over 2 decades. They are freaking awesome. Short, sweet, bang. They nail it. So I'll share those with you. And they're just brilliant and wonderful for audiences, particularly if you find yourself dealing with difficult, challenging audiences. They are amazing. We talked about how to use visual aids and props. So for those of you who attended any of you're probably all of them are here. So you've got this one and this one and this one. So we've got so I talked to you about the props, how to choose them, the part that they play, the psychological impact that they have. So we could probably just do a very quick sort of 5-minute run through of those. Talk about the power of storytelling. That feels like one that I could probably do better justice to. Maybe I'll do it as a bonus for the Fearless Public Speaking overall program, because it's important but not vital. And actually, if you're just doing this in a day, you don't want to get yourself too overloaded. So I think I've made my mind up on that one. Talk about how to validate your ideas as well, because you don't want to go and make the full-on meal if people really aren't kind of feeling the vibe. We also, with this one, of course, I remember I was teaching it. I think I was at Harry. Hang on, let me think. I can see the room. That was Haringey. I was first Wolverhampton, but Wolverhampton, sorry, not Wolverhampton, Waltham Forest. So I was at Haringey running a corporate presentation skills public speaking workshop. And I remember I said to everyone, so we will be doing a presentation practice after the break. And people were like, what? You mean we have to speak? I was like, it's a presentation skills course and communication skills course. Now, some of you, this might be good news, because we're compressing this into one day. Maybe not everyone will have to speak, so you will be able to choose. When I've run it previously, people could go off I'd set up a different platform where you could go into a room or you could use the portal. But I think it's a good idea really to do some presentation practice And one of the things also, when in the break, for example, I'd set people an exercise and I said, here's how to do the exercise in your own time, and then come back and let's debrief on that and how did you find it. So it'll probably be a good idea to leave an element of that in, or talk about some of the case studies. Or, you know, you've met Erica previously, that's one of the awards she won for speaking. We're also going to talk about, I've said 5 ways to move on. You know, if you forget, if you're standing there and you do have the rabbit in the headlights, what can you do to elegantly move along without your audience even noticing? Because one of the things, many of you will probably have had this scenario, you're in the audience watching a presentation and then the speaker gets all flustered because they've lost their place in their notes, and you can see they're all flustered, and then they say to you, oh, I've lost my place. You know, that just kind of potentially damages credibility, etc. So we'll talk about different ways to do that if you forget what you want to say. We're also going to talk about 6 ways, well, not necessarily 6, because if I'm cutting back for time, there might be 2 or 3. We'll talk about a few ways to remember your talk. And that's over and above the memory techniques that we previously talked about. There are some other things that you can do with regards to that. Also, presenting to large audiences, speaking to large audiences, connecting with large audiences, because I know one of the myths oftentimes is that you can't connect with a large audience. So the picture that I had of me at Kensington Olympia, I don't know, there's 1,500 people, 2,000 people, something like that. I had people who are sitting at the back of that space. I think the image is going to come up a bit later as well. I'll point it out when it does come back. And they, you know, they walked to the front after the presentation, and one of them said to me, I felt like you were talking just to me. That's with good 2,000 people there. So there is a way, that's not an accident. So I will talk, well, if I leave it in, we'll talk about the element and how you can do that. We're also going to, well, we did talk last time about what can you do, your center stage, whether that's online or in person, and all eyes are on you. So what can you do to overcome that and not let that take your focus? We also talked about 5 ways to stay on track once the presentation is rolling, the ticker is going, the timer's on. How can you stay on track, not get yourself distracted? We also talked about imposter syndrome, and I shared with you, now on the Fearless Public Speaking workshop, I shared 8 things that you can do to tackle imposter syndrome. And it was almost more like a checklist because there's already a 1-hour bonus session. So I may just take this one out completely, or if I do, it will just be a very whistle-stop tour through a couple of these. And if I do all of them, it will be just a fast and furious run through, because there is the 1-hour bonus that I've already prepared. We also talked about how to prepare at short notice. And when I'm talking about short notice, I mean like when I'm doing TV or radio interviews. Some of you, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll see when I post, like I shall be back on, let me see, hold on. I'll be back on Talk TV on the 31st of this month, for example. I think that's going to be my 5th month, where I do a 30-minute review of the morning papers. So me and the presenter, we go toe to toe. We don't always agree on all of the topics, but what happens is there's not much time to prepare for that. I have to do a review of the morning papers. The show is at 6 a.m. till 6:30 a.m. James Max and myself. The morning papers come out in the morning and I've got to send the production team my list between 5:30 a.m. and 5:45 a.m. So I've got to wait for the morning papers to come out. I've got to review 5 or 6 newspapers, and from there I choose 5 topics. I've then got to write up what those topics are, write those up, send them over to the production team. So it's quite a fast turnaround. And there will be times, and I'm not kidding you, I'm sat here minding my own business, I get a message or my phone rings saying it's BBC Radio XYZ. Could we interview you? Yeah, when would you like to do it? Are you going to be free in 15 minutes, for example? So we'll talk about how you do that. We've also got some processes if we've got time for those. We talked last time about banishing procrastination. I shared some of my favorite tips with regards to that. We also talked about things like increasing confidence. There are times, this is just to give you an example, where I have some little protocols for you to do. This is one of my favorite ones for increasing confidence and starting to bring a sense of calm. So we often do that. And then, of course, there is time for questions. And the way it's set up for people who are there live, there's an open chat where everyone can see what's being said, and there's also a private Q&A if you wanted to pose a question or share something, but you don't want any of the other participants to know what you're saying. So oftentimes we have what I call the invisible attendees, because you can't see they're there. I'm reading their comments and I'm answering, but I'm not saying who they are, etc. But that's the reason why, if you've ever wondered, where's she getting these questions from? I can't see it in the chat, that's why. So we do all of that. We also, in terms of this, of course, because it's a one-day workshop, we have breaks throughout the day. If you are attending on Saturday, just a reminder, if you've got time between now and when we go live, get some of your favorite foods or snacks. So for example, in my oven right this minute, it's off now because you don't want it, you don't want to burn them, but I've just done a batch of jacket potatoes because I know that's going to, one of those will be still good to eat on Saturday. I won't have time to be cooking, so I've started just to prepare my snacks and things that I want to do. I actually quite like boiled eggs, so what I will probably do on Saturday morning when I'm in the shower, I'm going to put a boiled egg on. That's going to be a nice quick breakfast. I've got my lunch lined up, which is a jacket potato. What I will probably do tomorrow is make the Saturday dinner. So get yourself prepared, have your snacks, so that when we have a break, you don't spend the time going, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat or drink? I'll be honest with you, particularly when I'm running the photo reading workshop and I'm doing it here online, because that's a 3-day workshop, I even go to the extent of I will have my mug, and I have 2 or 3 mugs lined up on the side, so that when I've used one, I can just go in and pick up another one. I put the tea bag in the mug and they're just sitting on the side. All I have to do is put the kettle on, throw the water in. It just saves time. So prepare for the breaks is what I will say to you if you are joining us. But yeah, that was the overview in terms of what we were doing. We've kind of gone full circle. So if you do want to join us and you haven't yet signed up, you can go to the main website. Based on that, let me know what would be in your top 3, or what would be in your top 5, or what would be in your top 10. And are there any subjects that you went, nah, it's interesting, but I don't think it's essential for where I am. So I would love your feedback. So I wanted to do that in just under an hour. It's been 52 minutes, so we're good for that. Thank you for watching, for joining me. You can email me. Actually, have I got my email anywhere in here? Don't know. God, there's loads. How many? Oh my God, got 274 slides in this stream. That's a lot. If I can quickly see one where I've shared my email address, but it's marilyn@transformationstm.com. That's the easiest way to get hold of me. If you're watching this on social media, you can also, of course, ping me a DM, a direct message. One of the things also I would say, what we might do, because some of these topics, even as I'm talking about it, so for those of you who are in the Fearless Public Speaking program, for example, I've already created some of the quick reference guides. There are a couple of things while I've been talking, my brain was thinking, oh, actually, perhaps I could create a quick reference guide for that. So this one is about how to present under pressure, for example. There's a checklist and reminders. So with some of the topics, if they don't make the cut, and if I haven't already done a bonus session around them, what I might do, I'm not promising because my schedule is such that, you know, as you will know, some of you, there's not much time at the moment. But if there's time, what I might do is I may create a couple of little mini checklists, etc. So that is it. I would say now, time for action. Let me have your top picks. Let me know the things you go, that's interesting, but I wouldn't necessarily need it on the workshop. And if you haven't yet signed up but would like to join us live, then get yourself signed up. Go to the transformationstm.com website. If you can't make it live, once you've registered, you will get access to the replay recording, the way I've set it up at the moment. And I'm watching what other people do. And I know many speakers nowadays, they don't give lifetime access to their material. You might just, be there or be square, or you'll get to, I've noticed one where they were offering 3 months access and then it disappears. So at the moment, I'm still doing the lifetime access if you can't make it live. but I can't say that's always going to be the case, but that's where I am at the moment. And also one of the things, it's interesting, I'm just looking through my stream and this is reminding me of this one. Fearless public speaking is often, it changes a little bit, but it tends to always be in the top 3 in terms of global fears. I'm not talking about the UK or the United States, global. Fear of public speaking, fear of spiders, often in the top 3, and they might slide around a little bit. That's me with Betsy the tarantula. So in terms of the biggest fears, I've overcome the fear of public speaking. I absolutely love it, as you might be able to tell. It's not getting me to talk, it's getting me to wrap up. And I've overcome the fear of spiders. So when I tell you it's possible to overcome these fears, I'm not kidding with you. I'm actually being totally serious. And also with regards to this sort of stuff, live TV, live radio, do that a lot. So what we talk about, working from home. So I was talking about working from home in that particular instance, but if time, and again, it might